The large city of Seattle lies in between oceans, lakes, and mountains. Between the Pacific coast and luscious mountain ranges, there is an abundant source of greenery and natural resources around the area. But we are at risk for severe, devastating natural disasters, including earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. In fact, Washington State ranks at the top of the country with the highest amount of natural disaster threats. So how has the threat of these natural disasters affected the city's culture?
Arguably the most dangerous natural disaster threat in Washington are the fault lines that the city of Seattle sits atop of. Running 700 miles from the coast of California to Vancouver, Canada, the Cascadian Subduction Zone, or San Juan de Fuca Fault, is the deadliest fault in proximity to us. The fault runs under the ocean floor that locks the lands together. If these two faults unlock, one would slide atop another and move the surrounding land significantly, most likely causing a magnitude 9 earthquake, destroying both the Seattle area and Pacific Northwest.
Magnitude is how seismologists measure the size of earthquakes using something called the Richter scale. The smallest earthquakes have a magnitude of 1, and the largest have a magnitude of 9. As you can see on the map, most people only begin feeling earthquakes at around a magnitude of 4, and the largest earthquakes in recent history have been a magnitude of 8 or 9.
Seattle has a long history of earthquakes. As you can see, quakes larger than a 6 magnitude occurred in 1909, 1939, 1946, 1949, 1965, and 1999. In most recent history, the largest earthquake that Seattle has experienced was the 2001 Nisqually earthquake.
Aircraft in Seattle, we have a huge earthquake going on. The tower is collapsing. I say again, the tower is falling apart. Hang on, everybody.
On February 28th at 10:54 a.m., the ground in the Puget Sound area began shaking without warning and continued to do so for 30 to 40 seconds.
So I was working in Fremont at that time when the quake hit, and it was a very old building, so we went outside. Well, actually, first, I wasn't sure what was happening. It was kind of a glass building. I had time to get outside, so I did, and then I heard the Aurora Bridge just creaking under the weight of this earthquake, and it went on for quite a while. Pretty big one, but it was my second earthquake that I'd been through, so I wasn't really nervous about it, but it was interesting for sure. And then we all just kind of decided to get out of the building and go home and check on our loved ones. So it wasn't too bad, but certainly bigger than we'd seen in a while.
Was there any visible damage near you?
I don't remember seeing anything. There was, we were in a brick building and it seemed to be intact. But when I turned on the TV and I saw how much damage there was further south in Seattle, I thought there might be more, but I never really saw any real physical damage where I was.
Do you think Seattle was prepared for this earthquake?
I don't. I think Seattle really isn't prepared. I mean, part of it is we have such old buildings that probably aren't going to withstand a big earthquake, and we hear about preparation, getting things together, but I don't know of anybody who really has a survival kit. And then what I always wonder is, where do you put that kit? Because if it's in the house or in the garage, how are you going to get to it when there's an earthquake? So I think a little more education would be good for this city.
Due to this lack of preparation, the earthquake cost upwards of $4 billion in damages and caused at least 400 injuries. But the 2001 Nisqually earthquake was miniature compared to the worst earthquake recorded in Seattle's history.
On January 26, 1700, at about 9 p.m., an earthquake of at least a magnitude of 8 occurred. The two faults pushed up against one another and caused a shift. A tsunami formed, reaching a height of 33 feet and causing immense damage to the Pacific Northwest. This is the exact earthquake we are set to have in the coming years.
A few years ago, the New Yorker released an article labeling this coming earthquake as the big one. The article highlights the fact that this massive earthquake is set to come in the next 50 years or so, and that the entire Pacific Northwest is completely unprepared for it. The article says that we are about 70 years overdue for an earthquake that sets off every 243 years, and that the quake will be so bad that it will destroy anything west of I-5.
If you think you are safe, take a look at this map. Everywhere in close proximity to us has a high chance of experiencing a magnitude 9 earthquake that will last 5 to 6 minutes with a tsunami to follow. For reference, in 2011, Japan experienced an earthquake with a magnitude of 9 for about 6 minutes. Following this earthquake, there was a tsunami that was 24 feet tall and reached 6 miles inland. The earthquake caused hundreds of billions of dollars in damages and caused more than 20,000 lives. The big one is expected to hit the Pacific Northwest, is expected to be equal if not worse than the Japanese earthquake.
Following the massive earthquake, Seattle will have about a 10 to 30 minute break before a tsunami destroys the city. The large bodies of water surrounding Seattle are all at risk of tsunamis, which are defined as large, powerful waves that threaten people and property near shorelines. If you think the sloshing, sliding, and shaking from the earthquake that will trigger fires, flooding, pipe failures, and destroy buildings and roads is bad, then you do not want to see what's after. The tsunami will drown anything and everything in its path. The good news is only a few areas are predicted to be in the so-called splash zone. As you can see, the tsunami will most likely only overtake downtown Seattle and Bainbridge Island. Unfortunately, earthquakes are not the only disaster we have to look out for.
In the state of Washington, there are currently 5 active volcanoes. The most active is Mount St. Helens. In March of 1989, after a century of inactivity, Mount St. Helens erupted, causing over $1 billion in damages. Thousands of animals were killed, and a crater was left on the north side of the mountain. About 57 people are killed directly from the blast, and 200 houses, 47 bridges, 15 miles of railways, and 185 miles of highways were destroyed. A plume of ash rose up into the sky. For 9 hours, ash continued to spew, with the sun carrying it all across Washington state. The eruption caused the largest landslide in recorded history and filled valleys below with debris. The mountain continues to erupt in the following years, with the last eruption being in 2000. It is considered to be the most active volcano in the United States and will most likely erupt sometime again in our lifetime.
But the destruction caused by this volcano is nothing near the threat of Mount Rainier. Rainier is known for causing volcanic mud flows known as lahars. These flows are a mix of volcanic material, water, and debris that make lahars a river of flowing cement. Approximately 90,000 people live in the direct path of Rainier's lahars, and when an eruption occurs, tens of thousands of people are predicted to be affected by the mud flow. Entire cities like Puyallup Valley and Enumclaw could be wiped out. It's unclear when the mountain will stir from its slumber, but the assumption is that it could happen at any moment, causing one of the worst natural disasters in U.S. history.
So, is Seattle prepared to handle these natural disasters? We went around our community and interviewed people. The overall consensus is that most people have little knowledge about these disasters, or didn't seem to care about them. Just have a look for yourself.
Do you have a game plan for if a tsunami comes?
No. Wait, tsunami? Is that the wave?
Yeah.
Oh, I would just swim.
List the natural disasters that Seattle's at threat to.
I'm not really sure. I'm not really aware of any natural disasters.
And do you know about the earthquake that's gonna hit?
There's an earthquake that's gonna hit? I did
The
not
big
know
one.
that.
Are you prepared?
The Yellowstone one?
Do you have a game plan?
No, I don't actually.
What do you do if there's an earthquake?
Stop, drop, and roll.
What do you do when there's a tsunami?
Run? No, you go to the basement and you hide it in like a area.
These interviews were very concerning, as no one seemed to be educated on these natural disasters. In an earthquake, if you stop, drop, and roll, you're dead. It's best to duck and cover. Find someplace that will allow you to avoid being hit by falling debris, like underneath a desk. When a tsunami hits, do not try to swim. Run to the highest ground possible and find something to use as a flotation device. In a volcanic eruption, hightail out of there and drive away. Do not stay and watch the lava flow. Most people online don't care about the risk of natural disasters either. In one Reddit post, a user asked if they should move to Seattle despite the risk of natural disasters. Most Seattleites commented something similar to disaster capitalist, saying that they do not think about the disasters and are not concerned about them because it's super unrealistic for the disasters to actually happen. The city of Seattle can be blamed for this mindset. The city has done little to try and create a city more prepared for future disasters. Following the 2001 Nisqually earthquake, the city began retrofitting buildings. This means that the buildings in Seattle began to be built with materials that moved with the ground, which lessens the risk of a building collapse. Unfortunately, this is not heavily regulated, and new buildings are often built without being retrofitted. One thing that they have introduced is alerts on phones, which alerts you when an earthquake or volcanic eruption is coming. While this is a good idea in theory, technology has only advanced so far as to give people 10 seconds of warning before they feel an earthquake and about 60 minutes for an eruption. This gives people very little time to find a safe place to hide.
But for the most part, Seattle is entirely unprepared for the coming disasters, and the culture surrounding the disasters needs to change if people are going to survive.
Acceptance of the fact that natural disasters are coming is the first step in educating the city in becoming more prepared for the disasters. In the case of Seattle's natural disasters, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.